Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pathway to Compliance, a podcast that looks at industry experts, talks about their technology journey, and all the fun stuff that goes with that. My name is Sally Smazinski. I'm one of the hosts, and today we are joined by Donnie Hampton and Sarah Hampton. And as they've reminded me, not married, not related. Okay, so we get that off the board. They're both founders of Roz, R-O-Z, which is an AI platform focused on helping audit, risk, and compliance teams automate some of their most time-consuming workflows, which is something Radian does quite a bit of. So we're very happy to talk with you guys. So welcome, Donnie and Sarah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
So give us a little background on Roz, and then tell us each about your journey. How did you get here from where you come from?
Yeah, so it's wild to think that we're a little over 2 years old. And if you told, I bet either of us, before we started Roz, that we would be doing what we're doing today, I'd be like, no way. But yeah, I've known Sarah for almost 16 years, actually over 16 years now, which is wild. We started our careers together, and we are like siblings that were, like you mentioned, we're not related. But Roz is the agentic control testing platform for auditors. And when we started that, I wouldn't be able to tell you clearly that that's what Roz was when we started our company. Before Roz, I was at McKinsey & Company almost 5 years, and I was predominantly a part of their business building practice, helping large established companies think about innovation and build new businesses in some way or shape or form. And I left McKinsey because I was starting to see where the world was going, and I was really starting to evaluate my own career, and had the opportunity to evaluate a strategy around Gen AI as that was going beyond just what people are playing around in ChatGPT, going from 23 to 24. And I realized, like, oh man, this is my moment. If I ever want to do something, this feels like the internet moment of our careers. I needed to jump. And admittedly, Sarah was the first person I thought of like, hey, if I was to kick the tires to build something, I should do and bug Sarah, because this is a space, if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be in this space.
It's awesome that you have each other. And Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, my career, like we started our careers together, as Donnie mentioned, but I started in IT, kind of ended up wandering somehow into cybersecurity, like specifically like rack stacking firewalls as like my first job. And so from there, I got really into cybersecurity, and I ultimately kind of like operated, led, directed every area of cybersecurity you can think of, which along the journey was like IT as well as compliance and building out compliance programs. So I've been doing that for over 12 years now, and definitely a huge passion of mine. But Donnie picked a really interesting moment to talk to me about my career, and I just was happy to like evaluate different career opportunities. And he somehow convinced me with a lot of persistence that it would be a good idea to just jump 2 feet in and build Roz. So we pivoted a lot along the way, but it's been a really interesting and fun journey with him.
So 2 years in, Sarah, and I know this is your first solo adventure with a new technology company. What's the biggest misconception that you've realized coming into this now with the years of experience you have?
Being a founder specifically?
Mm-hmm.
I would say like the biggest misconception is that every day would just be like doing exactly what you want to do all day, every day. And I think like I knew I was going to have to expand my experience and my skill sets, but I did not think I would pretty much have to do almost every sort of role, especially when we first started. It was just Donnie and I, and we were bootstrapping the company for a full year before we got any sort of funding, any major source of funding. So it was like it was really hard to like do things that maybe I didn't naturally like to do. But I had definitely had to learn, and there's been a lot of highs, but a lot of lows, and a lot of work along the way. So I think it was a lot more work than I thought it would be, but it is also the most rewarding job I've ever had. It's really interesting to see people get really excited about the automation we're building, and we're building towards something that I truly believe in. So even though it was been difficult, a lot of like challenges, like just from a growth perspective, I do think that this is the most interesting journey I've had in my life. And I am very proud of like kind of like where we've landed over the last 2 years. It feels longer than 2 years, but But yeah, that would be my answer.
It's awesome. And, we've been around for 21 and,
Yeah.
so, Lisa and I had an idea having Thai food for lunch one day and said, oh, and we didn't even know each other. We just sort of blended and we took the best of our capabilities and we had some other people with us when we started. And, 21 years later, it's just the two of us and a whole bunch of people that, do what we do. And it's exciting. And yes, you do things that you never thought you could do. Never wanted to be an expert in certain things that I'm now an expert in. But
Yes.
it keeps me good enough every day and wanting to continue to serve me, my team, and the betterment of compliance and audit, right?
I mean, I completely agree. I don't know if it's the same for you, but like, I don't know if I could have a normal job again. Like, I've just have gone so used to feeling uncomfortable and just always like constantly learning. So it would be very hard for me to go back into the corporate world again, even though like that is probably a little bit more relaxing than the world that we both like live in. So I would definitely say it's a challenge, but it has made me a different person for sure.
That's right. And you don't have all the risk if you go back to a real job. So
Yes,
I am not a
that's
good
huge.
employee. Absolutely not a good employee. I've been on my own since I was like 23. So I had my own consulting company through happenstance. And so from 23 to a lot longer since then, I have either been independent or had different companies that I've created. And I'm not HR. Don't ask me to be HR. We know our skills and our strengths, and then we stay with those. That's why you have a business partner that can do those things that you don't want to do. So, Donnie, how about you? I mean, this is not your first rodeo. So, what is different with this startup than your previous experiences out on your own?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, my first time around, I would say it was almost like getting into just like kindergarten, just getting your feet wet, starting a company with people you like in an area that you're passionate about. But hindsight 2020, we didn't necessarily have all the skills necessary to kick off what we had this ambitious vision about. Like this was pre Claude Code and all this, and it was a digital like ed tech business, and we were having to be really savvy to build it, but without the funding, even bootstrap funding, to be able to really bring to bear, hit the market hard. There's a lot of like misfires that didn't even give us the opportunity to really like, hey, is there a there and iterate? So there's just so many things that I quickly gleaned from that, built from it. But if it wasn't for like Sarah and just she mentioned, we'll say our complementary capabilities, as well as just like her deep knowledge in the space that we, have continued to go into, I have a chance. Like there's a greater likelihood that would have been another misfire. So that was a part of, as I thought about like, hey, if I'm going to start anything again, we need to feel super not convicted just about the solution in the problem area, but have like a deep level of expertise and capabilities where there's a little bit more balance because that was lacking. And I think my former co-founders would say the same thing. It's just like it's like going to play NBA basketball with only 3 people. That's right.
I like that analogy. All right. So let's talk about Roz a little bit. So 2 years in, AI has exploded on the commercial done used market. So what are the challenges for keeping up with the innovation and ensuring that your product stays relevant?
Guess I'll take that one. No, I mean, a good question. I mean, definitely AI has changed like significantly over the last couple of years. When I was first getting into it and just like understanding it, because I thought I was going to get back into the job market. And I was like, well, if I'm going to get into the job market, I must kind of like fully understand AI and like do evaluation. So when Donnie did start to reach out to me, like that's when I first like did a really big deep dive in that from a coding perspective and a technology perspective. And we've come such a huge journey since then as far as like the capabilities that we're able to do. So like our first basic approach was like I was POCing for a full month and just trying to get something in place to automate parts of my old job. That same type of thing that I did in a month could easily be done in maybe a day now. So like it's just changed significantly from like the actual technology. But I am really fortunate enough to like be able to be very hands-on from the product side as well as like the technology side. So I am the CTO and lead that. So it is very much part of my job to continuously always automate and always improve. And I think all of our customers are really pushing us to kind of like the more agentic type of style. So we started mostly with RAG, just like being able to retrieve data like everyone else. And now we're definitely moving more into those agentic type of workflows with a lot more flexibility. Being in the audit space, we have to be like very much deterministic too. So we have to be very careful with the technologies that we choose and how we are choosing to do our data flow, because like with security, like the data that you are processing is so important. And so I'm very cautious to try something new that's out there and try a new technology, because I really don't know how people are protecting their data. So we have a lot of like just a few sub-processors that we fully trust, and we will just like continuously iterate on top of like all of the new technologies they have. So every new model that comes out, we are doing an evaluation of it, testing it against our current data set, evaluating the cost of that, because there is significant cost changes with the different models. But we have been able to elevate ourselves so quickly as long as we can stay on top of those like model changes. So I would say the last like 6 months have been night and day difference of kind of like where AI is really going right now. So it's really interesting and fun to always like keep up to date in the challenges of like just trying to keep the technology up to date. But they also kind of like deprecate their models pretty quickly too. So it almost forces you to do that move up with them. But just always evaluating, how can I do this better? What are the challenges and workflows my customers are looking for? And how can I do that in the easiest way possible for them? And then use as much agentic as I can that's cost effective to be able to deploy out to them as quickly as possible. So if we can keep iterating, it's great, but there's a lot more competition because AI is a lot faster. So it's like you have to keep up, and you also have to keep your product moving into a direction that they're not taking right now. So taking those risks as well of like building what they don't have, but in doing that a lot quicker, because you're going to get the copycats. And we're seeing that in our space as well.
Right. And so coming from the audit and compliance side of the house, we're not tool-based at this point at all, because AI, the audit exercise, right, is for us anyway, and I know that it's evolving and we're changing too, but we're like, it's that conversation, it's looking at somebody in the eyes and, talking to them, and we're doing mainly ISO, so that's more subjective than say a financial audit or a security control audit. But so Donnie, since this was your brainstorm, what problem in the audit and compliance world made you think, there has to be a better way?
Well, I mean, I do give Sarah way, like she was the catalyst to even get into the world. That we'll say, like, if compliance is the world and we go to the country and we popped to the world of audit, like getting into this broader like environment of the sport of compliance and getting into audit was Sarah. Like my wife, she was an internal auditor and once upon a time like a SOX coordinator. I never would have imagined, gosh, 16 years later that we would be in this world.
Right.
But how we started down this lane, like it's not like we chose, if I use analogies of like went from playing a sport to playing an instrument, like it didn't change that drastically, yet our focus, I feel, was a catalyst of us. Like one, again, being in this lane with Sarah and knowing that this was where we were, but it was just being open to the market. And from an aperture standpoint, we had a really cool opportunity with a very large enterprise. And at the same time, we were still getting what we'll call natural market pull from some practitioners that were auditors. And as we like just listened and we thought about where our product was today, where the market was, and started really taking it, like opening our aperture of like, where can we win? Where do we have a right to play from a strategy standpoint? And where can we, to your even previous question that Sarah answered around technology, of like, where are we reducing our risk of the open AIs and Claudes, like just cannibalizing what can be made? This lane just became so much more attractive to us. But it was really just testing that with other practitioners and not before we said like, let's go all in.
Right.
I give way more credit again to even how we entered this space to Sarah. Though I did have market data saying like, I think this is attractive because admittedly,
I will say, like, I did not know I was going to get into audit when we were both brainstorming different ideas. The first idea was like a data security type of idea of understanding APIs and data flow, and was so excited about that. But then Donnie was like, hey, there's this GRC market that's out there. Let's explore this. And I was like, oh, no, I don't want to touch that. I'm actually a very disorganized person. And audit was not an area I was particularly good at, to be honest. And it was just one of those things. I'm an engineer. I like to fix the things. I don't necessarily like to document those things, as a normal engineer mostly likely would say. So I always just wanted to get to like, where's my gaps? Let me fix the gaps over and over. But when I actually owned compliance and I had to own like SOC 2, Type 2, and also like ISO 27001, you own that. And so like you are responsible for reading those standards, those 300 pages of documentations to make sure that you're complying for the company that you're representing. And like your whole job is to pass these audits. So it was a very large part of my previous job before Roz is like just doing audits all day, every day. And there was just so much documentation, so heavy. So when Donnie wanted to go into this space, I was like, I'm not sure this is what I want to talk about every single day. But to actually automate it and to take some of those pain points out and to get to like get the result faster, that is so rewarding to me. So even though like maybe I did not necessarily enjoy going through an audit and the stress that it put me in for years of my life, I really enjoy getting to that result faster. How can we automate those like more of those manual process, but it still enable like human in the loop, like judgment. And how can we, like, because you mentioned like subjectiveness, like, yeah, there's so many, so there's gray in a lot of these standards, specifically like in a SOC 2, so gray. So there's so much judgment that's involved in this. And we do still need external auditors. And I think that if we can allow them to move faster, increase their margins, but also allow them to go deeper than they had before, we're actually improving like security overall. And we're able to potentially go from sample based to full population based. So like there's a lot of really awesome growth opportunities working with those like auditing firms that really know the standards really, really well. And I can really iterate on top of that and kind of like get to where do we need to be as quickly as possible, but also go as deep as possible. So you have everything available to you as quickly as you need it to make your judgment call if this is good or this is bad. Let's move on to the next one and make it a really good client experience. Just being on the client side, like that's been getting evidence. It's been a lot of work. So being able to kind of like make that process a lot smoother has been, as I mentioned, pretty rewarding.
Cool.
So that all said, like I don't know how we ended up in this space because it's not necessarily somewhere that I would have like chosen myself, but I'm so glad we did because there's a lot of opportunity and audit is a great area to automate because there's a lot of like little small things that you have to do to ensure that you're meeting all of those requirements because the auditors get audited. So you have to show your work too. So I think a lot of people don't realize that. But yeah, there's so much work that has to be done on the auditor side. And it's nice to be able to just like, oh, that's simple. Everything's organized as it should be.
Right. And our biggest challenge is we are second party auditors, right? So we audit other companies internally. We don't do external audits for the registrars. We do them for the company itself. And our challenge with the automation is they like the human touch. Right? They like to have the conversations versus just looking at data against the standard, right? And a SOC is less personal, as we always kind of say. The ISO is a little more personal, and I know we'll probably create a whole bunch of conversation with that statement. But so we struggle to have our clients embrace the automation, so we're slow to adopt. So I know that we'll have a lot of conversations after this podcast to try to help convince us to get a little more automated. But part of our concern, especially on our audit side, is our clients' confidence that we are protecting their data, right? Yes. So we get security questionnaires all the time. I'm sure you are. So how are you representing your security posture for data management, for securing and encrypting data? So what sort of things that you have that's tangible that allows you to answer these questionnaires to the level where your clients are confident?
Thank you for asking this question. It makes me really happy. But yeah, that's something I feel really confident in. Like, as I mentioned, like 12 years has been my background in cybersecurity. It's something I'm really passionate about. So the way we have built like from day one is like with security in mind, also security with design. So we kind of put in place like a lot of the same technologies that you would see at like large enterprises. We have like our WAF, we have encryption everywhere. It's not just 1.2, it's 1.3. How do you take it to the next level up?
Mhm.
I also really believe in really like ensuring that where your data is moving and understanding where that is, and data residency from a privacy standpoint is really important too. And so like we have the ability to spin things up via Terraform in a new region if we have to ensure that we have the right data residency privacy requirements. And also being able to, something major happen to our region, like we are able to, recover in 4 hours and just go like start like nothing has happened. So that data recovery, the data movement, like where's all that data going is so important to me. And I think that's different than I think a lot of the startup founders that I know. I've worked with a lot of them now. Like usually security is the afterthought of, I think security needs to be a part of how you build. And we built slower because I built security first.
Mhm.
And making sure that your vulnerabilities are taken care of. Like if someone comes in, I'm going to be doing my pen test. I'm remedying the pen test as quickly as possible. Like I am ultimately responsible, like as the CTO, to make sure that like your data is being protected. And like I take that super seriously. And I think a lot of other startup founders need to do that because it's so easy to just let me go ahead and point to this cloud service that can give me the visibility that I need or the functionality I need. But that data is your customer client's data. And honestly, when you're doing security audits or just any audits that are financial, that data is so sensitive. I mean, that's PII plus plus. So like you are like dealing with the most sensitive information and now sending this off to somewhere else. And I don't think people are taking security seriously enough as founders and startups. So like whether you choose RAWS or another tool and you're working with a startup, I think security should be the first thing on people's mind, because that would be the worst thing for you, like, is to give your client's data to someone else and you be like, you have to tell them that they've been associated with a breach with their confidential information. So I take it really seriously. We definitely put all the gates on top of that. But like, I do think everyone like that may be listening that's thinking about like, putting audit data with AI, like be very careful because not everything is created equal. And I think that's where one area that RAWS really shines well is how like serious we take our vulnerabilities and ensuring that we're actually remediating things on time within the SLAs that our customers expect, ensuring uptime, all the things. And where is our data actually moving? We feel pretty confident in that approach. So yes, we do have security questionnaires, but I don't have a hard time answering those. I've always been on the other side of answering security questionnaires, so I kind of know what they are expecting. So we just kind of beat to the highest level standards possible. And I think that's how all startup founders should do. Elevate, everything should be as protected as you can. There's really at this point no excuse not to. You have AI to help you along the way if you don't know how to do something.
Well, thank you for that answer because, getting our clients on the consulting side to properly answer those security questionnaires are hard, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Especially in the larger organization, IT is not always responsible for all the technology answers. And so you don't always have the right audience. So tools are helpful there because it's consolidated. I appreciate all of that because that's just really a tough thing. And from a founder perspective, I think that's a good piece of advice because everybody who's founding companies now they're technology enabled, and AI is going to be a part of their service. So what you just said is very current and should be listened to.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And also it's just like, if you think about it, it's actually a really risky thing not to put that as part of like how you build, is because like if you're a startup and you're going for, you're trying to go into enterprise or whatever, like there's so much risk to a single breach. Like if you get breached as a startup, that's a game over moment. straight up. Like you're not going to be able to recover like the big legacy players that are out there. Like their stock price may go down, but as a startup, like you are a part of a breach and that is now assigned to you. And I don't think that you can really recover very well when that type of thing occurs. So I think if people can kind of think it that with that mindset that this could be a game over moment as a risk, I think they could step it up a bit.
Thank you. So Donnie, what's a prediction about AI auditing and compliance and it's coupled together that most people would disagree with today? The naysayers, I guess.
Oh man. I mean, I definitely have some hot takes. And this concept of like the PCAOB and even talking in that level, because you then talk about the big four and what they're doing. And they've invested $7.5 billion in AI, not all in audit, but that's a good place where they make a lot of money owning the world of stocks as well as many other areas. But a hot take that we talked to a few firms about too is just this concept of full population testing is like, well, how quickly will that really be adopted? Why would that be adopted? It's like, well, let's imagine a world where AI tools like RAWs do get adopted. They get adopted not only from the firms, but by enterprises, those that really have to do this at scale because they have not just hundreds of controls, but potentially 1,000 controls because they're so complicated.
Right.
Organizations. And well, what if they can do it just as well as the big four that they lean on? And now, a sample set in 25 samples is not, right? Well, my hot take around AI is like, as everything changes and change does finally take wind of these groups, it's not tomorrow, it's not next year, but down the line, I do believe the big four will continue to push towards the world of population testing because they are going to want to leverage these tools to maintain kind of their hold on the world, so to speak, because it's until folks can catch up, that's a way to like enforce why you kind of have to maintain the use of these third-party objective gorillas, so to speak. And if they can prove it first, then it's hard to get to the reperformable level of a full population set, then there's economics there. Another reason why these organizations should really be thinking about like, wow, if that's where the boat's going, if that's where the world's going, holy moly, not only do we need to think about this because it's better for us, but we need to think about where the puck's going. And that's my hot take when it comes to the world of AI and the world of audit, and starting with kind of the biggest economic driver, at least in the US.
That's kind of the crystal ball, right? I think that where we think today, and even again, we're slow to start with automating our audit process and for various reasons, but it is a misconception that it's not going to happen and our clients aren't going to embrace it. We see it on the consulting side all the time because we go in to help them write policy and put processes together and they hand us the documents that they created out of chat, right? And so, we have to deal with that. How is that going to affect our business? So that's definitely a risk that we talk about at our advisory all the time because we have to deal with it, not as in both ways of our clients using it and us using it with our clients, right? So there's different issues and risks going both ways. So with that, seeing that I'm sort of old school, what are some of the challenges of modern audit evidence collection and testing?
What are some of the challenges with evidence collection and testing?
Right.
When using AI or without?
So you have to convince a client like us that, old school isn't the right school anymore, right? You need to go on to high school from middle school. So what are the challenges or what are the benefits that you provide in a sales cycle, if you will, on why your tool can modernize the audit process?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I think I want to kind of answer that just like kind of based on like an experience I had. So in my previous role, like one of the requirements is go from like a ISO 27001, like from scratch. So it's like you don't have anything, you're going to 27001. You must kind of like meet all of those standards. Luckily, like it's super like easy for me to like read a standard, understand what it is. ISO is really good about like here are what your guidances are. Okay, so like if you read, you can do it, and then you can kind of evaluate where's my gaps. That same like ISO gap process for us cost essentially about like $250,000 of cost of a like 2 people working on it for like, 6 months to a year. And that's like what you're doing is like you're creating that statement of applicability. You're creating that. You're going to be cross comparing that against what your policies and procedures are. Figure out where your gap is. I'm going to document that in a spreadsheet. I did it all manual, all of it. I've been and gathering evidence, putting that into a folder, and then I link that evidence to my spreadsheet. And then I'm like, okay, I got evidence here. I'm good here. The auditor's going to check this one off. I'm not good here. Now I need to go have like someone go work on this. This is where my gaps are. But to get to that, I mean, that was a 6-month process just to find that.
Mhm.
That same analysis can be done in under 30 minutes in our platform. So, and it's still with like human in the loop as part of that. So it's like, this is our standard. This is the standard. This is our requirements. This is what our policies and procedures state. At the end of the day, that's what you're kind of like evaluating. And then there's that human in that loop that says like, is this right or is this not right? How do I change? How do I improve? Getting to that gap is so important. And the speed is like really incredibly helpful like for your client too, because they just need to get something going because they have the pressure from, the high ups to get this done as quickly as you can. So to enable like speed like that, to tell them, here is where you are, like in a day, let me give you like where your gaps are, go solve those, let's fix those, get a readiness assessment in place, and now we're ready to go. And you have a lot more confidence. There's also a lot of issues with evidence gathering because like you have data in all of these like different places across all of the companies, and an auditor typically doesn't have that access. So they're having to go and ask questions to everyone. They'll get the responses back. And then they're going to ship it over to the auditors and they say, here you go. And then the auditor, maybe a couple weeks later, goes and looks at all the evidence and batches and says, man, you're missing timestamps here. You need to go ask that. But as a client, that's such a bad experience because now I have to like go back, say, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that you had to have a timestamp, but can you redo this evidence? So there's all this like hidden cost of an enterprise or like a company that you're being audited to get evidence pulling because it's not just the auditor's job. It's the other person's job, and that back and forth and that time wasted because they did not know that the evidence was the way it should be. You had the evidence, it just wasn't in the format that an auditor will accept, especially since auditors really care about completeness right now. Like that's it. This has changed a lot, I would say, in the last year. So what I'm saying is like, that's a challenge for clients right now. And it's embarrassing as me as like a compliance leader to have to ask for evidence twice or 3 times to get that back. So if we can, I would say that's a huge challenge, but like a tool like ours, we could say, hey, I'm looking for this piece of evidence. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And we actually have like what we call evidence validation checks where you can say, yes, sir, like that's engineer, go pull back all of your PRs and give me all that evidence that you've had approvals. Well, when they put that evidence into our portal, we can check that it meets all of the auditor standards. Does it have a timestamp? Does it have the usernames? Does it have, a URL that's attached to it? How can I tell that it's like actually linked to the actual sample that I'm pulling from? So all of those things can now be validated in real time. So it's not that back and forth. Like they can submit it once, test it themselves. Yes, it has the data I need. And now I go back and self-service that themselves. And if I got it wrong, I can just at that time when I'm already on the screen, get a new screenshot. Now I can upload that evidence. And it saves everyone time on the journey. So I do think that that's like the different way that we can start like evaluating evidence, giving people the tools that they need to get the right information because they want to do the right thing the first time. Just sometimes they just don't know. And I would say that's been the majority of my experience. So things like that, I would say challenges where AI can really help accelerate that time period. And again, get to those gaps faster because you can get the evidence faster. As well as like there's always like the API integrations and pools that you can do. Of course, everyone knows that. But like little simple things like that is, I would say, a huge time saver.
Little simple things. My mind is being blown, because it's like,
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, like, yeah.
I'm cool. And I'm thinking, I have to look at it all. I know the standard in my head. I can recite it upside down, backwards, and sideways. And I'm looking at the evidence, and it's not good enough because I know it's not good enough. So I'm asking, I'm pulling, for the client.
And it's like pulling teeth. No one wants to do it. And then you have to wait again. And you're just like, and then they're like, this guy's on vacation. And you're like, oh my gosh, like now, and then you have the time pressure and the stress of it all. So it eliminates a lot of that stress. And it's just like little small thoughtful changes on like, what is the client experience? How, like, I've just been the client, like on that side. I just like, I've had bad experiences. Like, let me fix this problem. And that's been a really rewarding part for me. But yeah, that would be an example of a challenge in how we're trying to solve it with AI and just try to make things as much self-service as possible, but still human evaluated. And the auditor needs to be able to say what evidence is sufficient or not anyone else.
Right. Even though the tool is looking at it from their checks and balances. So,
1,000%, yeah.
Rely on the technology, you still have to use your brain, right?
Yeah.
You still have to
and AI gets stuff wrong all the time. Yeah. Right. So we have like AI, like hallucinations. People are going to say like, oh, that's a challenge with AI. Yeah, true. But we never look externally. We only look internally to the documentations that you provide to us. And that actually really helps with the hallucination problem, the challenge of that, and like getting the wrong results. We also have like a confidence score. It's like, how confident are we that we answered this question right? And giving that like full visibility to the auditors is so cool. Like they're like, oh, okay, like I see how the logic AI got here. I can understand why it gave this result. And you need to give full visibility. There should never be a black box, in my opinion.
And I think that's a differentiator, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Because, a lot of the other tools you're just dumping in and there is no analysis, right? You're just dumping your data into it and maybe it's segregating it in by clause, but it's not necessarily evaluating that it's meeting those requirements. So I think that in your case, just my experiences with some of the other tools out there, that's a differentiator. So
thank you. Yeah, I've used a lot of those tools as well. They're a little too binary for me. It's it's very black and white. It's like you turn something on and you have so many false positives, so you have to turn it off. Like, okay, like, yeah, you have some sort of automation, but it's not flexible enough to actually be sufficient, especially when you get into more complex organizations. Like, it just won't fit that complexity. And so the nice part about like these AI native tools that are coming out here, like RAWs, but like other tools too, like we now can give additional context to things that were once black and white. And we can now like store that in a different way. So I definitely think that like the way we develop and the way we think should be different than our legacy tools that are out there. And I do think that my hot take is like these legacy players that have been in there for a long time, they're going to get the run for their money because like you have to really think differently and try to think, how do I take this data and make it the most simple as possible and give the information to them in a way that is understandable. And you kind of have to do that from the ground up and just rethink how you build.
How you build.
Yeah.
Well, Donnie, Sarah, this has been a great conversation, near and dear to my heart. Honestly, this is, I get what you're saying and I could geek out a lot longer, but we'll kind of curve it here.
We'll do that in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we'll do that in a couple of weeks. So thanks so much for joining us, me at the time, and sharing your journey, your insights, and your perspectives on how AI is changing the world of audit and compliance. I appreciate that you've taken the time to share your story, and I'm sure it'll be very interesting for everybody else. So appreciate that. And for those watching, thank you for tuning in. If you liked this episode, subscribe it, leave a review, share it with a friend or colleague. Those actions help us get more listeners and continue bringing some value your way. This is an inaugural season for us, and so we're very excited to have the caliber of folks to talk to that should be interesting to everybody who watches. So thanks for listening. Donnie and Sarah, thanks for joining, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.